All right, this is the fourth video of the chapter 11 about work, money, and leisure. And we're finishing off this topic about, three perspectives to look at their work-leisure relationship. And that third perspective is a neutral perspective. And arguably, in a way, it's the best, most balanced, perspective. So it's very important. From this perspective, work and leisure are not at a battle, right? Not in a conflict with each other, but they're, both are desirable for their respective benefits. They have different benefits, and we need both. Both are required for realizing life to its fullest. The secret is, and not that secret, is a balance, work-life balance. We talk about that, right? We know that. And arguably, a lot of people tend to believe in this neutral perspective, right? In a way. Well, of course, the question is, do we actually live with it? Now, that's another question. But before getting into this balance issues and all that, I wanted to talk about, is there any evidence? Like we talk about work-life balance just typically in a popular discourse. Your parents know that, you knew that before taking this course even, right? But do we have a science behind that? Well, our research team has kind of done some evidence, collecting data and evidence on that. For example, Work in the Corner 2018, we collected data from Edmontonians, right? We compared effects of leisure and work, especially work satisfaction, leisure satisfaction, and their impact on what we call global life satisfaction. That's like a happiness, right? So what I want you to look at, this is the entire finding. It's a fancy statistics. I don't need you to worry about that in most of it, but I want you to focus on the red one, right? From work satisfaction to the global life satisfaction, the number is 0.42. Leisure satisfaction to global leisure life satisfaction is 0.46. Very similar. We actually statistically tested whether they're different from each other. They're not. So what that means is that work and leisure have comparable, like equitable impacts on our happiness, overall happiness, based on Edmontonians. And together they explain about 49% in differences in happiness level, life satisfaction level across people, Edmontonians. That's quite a bit, I would say. That's quite a bit. Only two variables, work satisfaction, leisure satisfaction, about 50%, right? Now, we replicated this finding recently, and we just published that paper yesterday, so I'm happy. Now, we replicated a study with the Hong Kong Chinese workers. Okay, so that's very different people across the Pacific Ocean, right? Now, does this apply? The number here in the 0.36, 0.49 may look a little different, but we statistically tested, there's no meaningful difference between them. And that means pretty much same. Again, it's the support for a neutral perspective. Work and leisure both are equitably, comparably important in terms of our happiness, right? And that number 0.50 at the bottom, that means they together explain 50% of variance or differences in our happiness and life satisfaction level across people among Hong Kong Chinese. So that seems to be actually generalizable pattern. So far we know. Yeah. We don't know about other countries, but we know this much. So what that means is that it supports that, first of all, neutral perspective, work and leisure are equitably important, about the same, and they impact quite a bit of our global life satisfaction, happiness, overall happiness, basically, in Canadian, Edmontonian, as well as Hong Kong Chinese. Now the question is, where is the balance, right? Where is the balance? And chapter make a really good point. The balance will not necessarily be equal, as in like a 50-50. It's not just like that, right? It's not like you spend 8 hours on your work and 8 hours on leisure and you're gonna be like happiest ever. No. And the balance is not necessarily constant throughout life. For example, let's say you study 6 hours per day and you have leisure 6 hours, 6 hours leisure. And that's pretty makes you happy, really happy, right? But that doesn't mean that in 10 years, 20 years, the same balance will work for you, right? It's a moving target. Now, the catch is we haven't really studied scientifically the balance bird. It's a really difficult concept to measure and work around, okay? And in leisure studies, I can maybe handful, like a few papers and studies that look at this concept of balance. And one of them, maybe my study can help. So what I did was I studied how enjoyable, effortful leisure experience may help students, university students like you guys, actually in Japan though, improve the balance. And I'm going to tell you balance between what, and also well-being. And specifically in terms of well-being, we looked at what the Japanese people call ikigai, or life worth living. So it's a eudaimonic well-being. It's the pursuit of good life. Okay, so that's the right circle, ikigai. Now the center is the balance. What that means is that the balance between total effort and enjoyment in your life. So as a student, effort is the broadest definition, by the way, remember, of the work. We learned that definition at the beginning of this lecture. Now, work is the reason why I didn't say work leisure balance, because effort doesn't necessarily come only from work, right? For example, these are students, so it comes from education, it comes from housework, it comes from some of the relationship. We have to work on our relationship, right? Some other obligations, there are so many things. So considering everything, how much effort you're making and how much of fun, enjoyment you're getting. And again, it doesn't necessarily come from the leisure. It could come from some of the work, some of the study, some of the relationship, some other stuff, right? So wherever they're coming from, total effort, total enjoyment in your life, what's your balance? Do you think it's really good? Not really good? Good or neutral, or that kind of stuff. Now, on the left side, we have two bubbles: leisure enjoyment, enjoyable leisure, having fun, maybe taking a trip, watching some fun TV shows, whatever that might be. Leisure effort. That means, effortful leisure experience is something challenging, something that makes you feel flow, maybe something that you're serious about, right? We thought that it would be related in this way, like there are so many allos going on. And now what we realized was that although they expected the relationship kind of exists among university students, it really depends on the group of people, students we're talking about. So for example, among the what we call high effort students who are making a lot of effort overall in their life, maybe these are the students who are in their first year, so many work, getting used to the university, maybe doing a part-time job, maybe some other student organizations or clubs or whatever. There's so much going on in their life. For those people, look, especially this red circle, I want you to take a look. Leisure, enjoyment, enjoyable leisure, fun, maybe casual leisure too. That had a bigger impact, not surprisingly, on the balance between total effort and enjoyment. Because these are the people who are getting a lot of effort, right? Maybe schoolwork, part-time job. You got to balance it out with the enjoyment from leisure. And that predicted ikigai, a life worth living, pretty well. The balance, in turn, had effect. Now, with the low effort students, maybe these are students, this semester I'm going to take it easy. I'm a fourth-year student. I know how university works. I don't have to stress out. I'm not taking so many courses. The job is pretty easy for me, part-time job. The things are maybe figured out. You figure out the things maybe. I don't know if you ever feel that way, but let's say. Anyway, those are people not feeling a lot of work and effort required in overall life. Now realize the relationship from the leisure enjoyment to the overall balance, that is now, it was strong, but now it's disappeared. It's the broken line means it's non-existent. It's not statistically significant. Because again, these people, low effort. What's important for them, what was important for them was leisure, effortful leisure, like something serious, something maybe flow inducing. That from the bottom had a very strong contribution to the balance, which in turn had a really strong relationship to the life worth living. So really, it was actually a lot of information, and it's a model, so it's kind of a bit of abstract. The takeaway is that the balance is important. The central components of balance is always important for, of course, different university students, with the different effort level, definitely helping us achieving life we think worth living. And now, leisure had a very interesting, different effect, different types of leisure, enjoyable or effortful, had a different effect on overall balance depending on students' life situation, right? But either way, they had some contribution. So maybe leisure is a life, the part of aspect about life where we get what we need. For example, for high effort student, they didn't need more effort from leisure. So they went for enjoyment, right? So that they can achieve that balance. For the low effort students, they went for their serious leisure, maybe flow kind of leisure, so that they can make that, get extra effort so that they can make that balance. Maybe leisure is where we can get that something missing in your life in terms of the balance. Maybe that's the key. If that's the case, it makes sense. Leisure is so much important. When we talk about work-life balance, it's really work-leisure balance. And the work isn't really the key point, because how much work can you choose? Especially now with the COVID and everything, right? Hey, boss, I don't really want to do this task. Sorry, okay, you gotta go, right? It could happen. How much of control do you have? Depending on the occupation, you may not. But leisure, you can design. You can choose different activity. You can commit to a different level. You can keep it casual, or you can make it serious. So that you can get what you need to make a better balance, quote unquote balance, in your life. Does that make sense? It's a bit complicated, but it's important. So I want you to know that. So have you thought about this question? Why do we have to, why is full-time job usually 40 hours per week? Who decided that, right? Well, there's a law, maybe. In Canada, for example, the maximum hours that employee can work is normally 48 hours per week. So that's maximum, legal maximum for the most jobs, right? And usually full-time job is 40. I share the statistics, and that's what Canadian adults work too. But really, do we really have to? We don't really have to. The chapter shares some strategies to potentially work a little differently. Maybe it's 40 hours, but 40 hours in a different way, or less than 40 hours. For example, job sharing. Filling a single job with multiple people. For example, 20 hours, part-time job, 2 people. It's rare. I would say it's rare. But I've seen one. There was this one person that I know, female woman. She was fantastic with her job, okay? And she got pregnant, and she wanted to take a maternal leave, and she even thought about not coming back to the job. But she was so awesome that her boss wanted to do anything to keep her in any way. So what the boss offered, the organization offered, was that, hey, let's say, Samantha, you're fantastic. I want to keep you in any way. What about you stay in this job 20 hours a week, right? Part-time. And then you can bring another person of your choice 20 hours a week, right? And that's what they did. And that was a win-win in a way, because she ended up bringing one of her mentees into that job. So that was great for mentee. And that person get to keep the job a little bit, right? So have that sense of contribution, but also she has this more, time for the family and everything. So that was a really win-win situation. Flex time is the second strategy we discussed. It's about choosing the time to start and a workday. Typically, it's like 8 to 5, right? And there's a lunch break. But it doesn't have to be that way. Usually, flex time has this core hours in the middle, like it's during close to lunchtime in the center, that you have to come to the office, so that there, if you need to talk to like your colleagues, you can talk to your colleagues, right? Or colleagues can talk to you, right? There has to be some overlap. However, the beginning and end, you can change. Like for example, you can come to office 10, you can work until 7, just like that. The other one is work week compression. What that means is that you can still working 40 hours a week, but you can squeeze it into a fewer days rather than 5 days, for example. 10, 10, 10, 10, Monday to Thursday, right? And then you can get a Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. That may work for some people. Downshifting is changing one's career and position into something less stressful, right? Sometimes it's a career, entire field. People go to banking and they realize that bank or stock market, those financial stuff, and they realize it's not for them. So stressful, really good, and they decide to come to sometimes us, recreation field, right? Something that you feel more meaningful. Or position. And maybe if you think about it, that's really the idea of career and promotion is kind of ineffective. And actually many economists and many management people started to have discussed this for a long time already. Because think about it, a lot of, for example, recreation job, right? Campus recreation, city municipal recreation, you've started with the entry position, right? Doing some maintenance stuff, you talk to, reception, talk to people, where, activity coordinator, whatever, and you get promoted to like managerial and executive, roles. But why? Because the fact that you're so fantastic with the people as a receptionist doesn't mean that you're a really good manager, right? So when you promote them, sometimes, a lot of people actually get stuck at the position where you're really not so good at. And people started to feel miserable. And there's that economical theory and management theory about that too. So why not keep that person in the job and maybe give them raise, maybe? Or what about manager person to go down? Why is career promotion is always going up? Can a person go up a little bit depending on their financial need? And toward the end of their life, can they, on their career, can they go back down the ladder? Why don't we do that? We should be able to do that, right? And finally, phase retirement, which is basically retiring gradually rather than like from work, a whole lot of work to no work at all. That's a very traumatic, actually, transition for some people. They miss work. Not necessarily because of work, but because of that transition is too rapid and abrupt. So for example, my former supervisor, Gordon Walker, you know his name by now. He took this phase of retirement, actually. And I think it was really a very wise decision that he made. So he, I forgot exact hours, but I think he worked about 75% in the 2 years before the retirement, year before 50%, and retire. And of course, you have to get less money for that. The problem is if, can 50% really mean 50% because of the job like teaching, or research? It's easy to work more and more. Okay, so that depends whether it's really it works or not. But it's an idea so that you kind of get used to working less and less so you can successfully retire. A lot of people actually struggle with retiring. What about your parents? What about your grandparents? Are they happy with their retirement, or are they miserable? So these are strategies we can take. You can take. And also, you can adjust the entire lifetime so that you can have a better balance between work and life, work and leisure. Typically, we tend to think on this top left corner, kind of perspective, linear life plan, right? The ship icon represents play. Child plays, right? Then books, education, go to schools and the university. And then hammer means work. Work, 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 work. Retire, play, leisure. And there's that. It's very linear, right? But you can't think more cyclical way in terms of life plan. You can approach life in a more circular way. You as a kid play and then studied and then hammer work a little bit. And then you realize you want to, you save up some time or money. So you want to take a trip and pray maybe and go back to, advanced degree like a master's degree and work maybe even higher paid position and then study more. Maybe do some research position, yada, yada, yada. Cyclical. So the education, play, leisure, work is kind of sprinkled throughout life. It's actually more and more people do this. A lot of people who have some work experience come back to graduate degrees. Last thing about neutral perspective. Another way to potentially make that balance between work and life and leisure is this co-working, which is a new phenomenon. People working in the same place, shared workplace, although they're not employed by the same company organization. Yeah, it's pretty common, I think, getting common for entrepreneurs and those people. I can see so many benefits. Networking with the people from different areas, sharing different ideas and solutions, maybe creativity, novelty, and just simple fun. Just simple fun, knowing people from outside of your area. Apparently, in Edmonton, there are many co-working spaces, and I think there's the one on White Avenue. I think I know where that is, actually. So maybe after COVID-19, this could be a way to go for some of you too. Now I'm going to stop talking, and I will see you in the next video.